Welcome to Obscured Reality with Mark and Stephanie. From UFO sightings to the lost city of Atlantis, from alien encounters to the living dead, each episode will leave you questioning reality. If you're ready to explore the eerie, tune in to Obscured Reality, where mysteries come alive.
John Lear had access to the information. He had access to visually see Papoose Lake test flying out of Area 51. He knew about Area 51 because he was there. He probably saw and knew about Papoose Lake because he had to fly near it. It was probably on his charts, his maps for flying in case anything goes down in the airplane, electronics, communications. He can visually, VFR, fly his way back. It's pretty goddamn simple to me, man. This is why I think this begins with John Lear. He was inside before Bob Lazar and had the info.
When you say he had the info, you're talking about just the terminology or the different names of the.
He would have known
had info that of what Bob Lazar is claiming is inside there.
He would have known about Area 51 because he was there.
Hold on right there.
Yeah.
Hold on with that. So Area 51 is named after the grid coordinates that it prior to 1989 with Bob Lazar. Was that I don't remember back then, but it had to have been that the name was out there, that Area 51 has been.
So we already heard that in this Richard Doty stuff we went over tonight. In October 1988, that's when the television broadcast that was called UFO Cover-Up with a question mark live. That's when they introduced the stories of Majestic 12, which is rampant throughout the Lazar story, and Area 51. So Area 51 was already a name, maybe not common household name. However, I've heard plenty of interviews with people who were in the know, allegedly, back in that time, and maybe not in the know, but in the military, in the general area. And they said, yeah, in that area, Area 51 was common talk, but it wasn't everywhere else because we didn't have the internet, going around. Right. So when I say that about John Lear, I'm talking he had the knowledge. He knew of Area 51 because he worked there. He most likely knew of Papoose Lake, which would be perfect to use because it's on the other side of the mountain range and you can't see it from any public site, where at the time you could see Area 51 from public viewing far away.
Okay, so you're saying that John Lear had like the layout. He knew, he was familiar with the different, and then he could feed that. He would have
known how far that mountain range is. He's flying. He knows that's going to be approximately 15 miles. It's probably on the maps he was using to navigate if he needed to navigate VFR, which is visual flight rule, rather than using electronics to fly. He can look out the window and visually fly and know where he's at based on the maps and, directions he's gone, how far, speed, and all that bullshit. And he most definitely would have known this. Oh man, there was something else with that too. That was the main stuff. But now you throw Majestic 12 into the mix. John Lear most likely would have known about that because he was deep into the UFO lore. And, he was a conspiracy theorist to the max with this stuff. So this is why I am mostly convinced. Oh, that's the other thing. Another major part of Lazar's story that's very minor, but also very major, because these are details nobody's going to know about back then. But it turns out Bob Lazar knew. This was the white buses. The white buses. So Bob Lazar's story was basically they would fly me in from McCarran Airport on Janet Airlines. This all goes into it, actually, with John Lear. How do you think John Lear got to Area 51? The goddamn Janet flights or the white buses. They probably had a choice, depending on where they lived, to take the white buses or the Janet flights. We know today from YouTube videos, people are going out to Rachel. They know where they're parking the white buses. People go there and wait. I've seen them. And they video these guys getting off the white buses and they don't say a word. And you can tell they look pissed. They're just like, get the hell out of my face, And we know the white buses transport people from Rachel and possibly other areas on those main dirt roads into Area 51 through those main gates. We know the Janet Airlines are housed at McCarran Airport as well as other places, and they fly to places such as Area 51 and other places as well, not just there. Bob Lazar's story, he got flown in on Janet Airlines from McCarran into Area 51. From there, he hopped on a white bus with blacked out windows approximately 15 miles south of the range, the mountain range, and went around the south end of the mountain range west, right up to Papoose Lake right there. And that's where S4 is. Now,
He claims at one time they let him off at a different, or with the hangar being up, and that's
well,
when he saw the craft.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had gone down there to watch a flight too. Yeah. And one of those times they were all open and all this bullshit. And who knows, maybe it's not bullshit, but this is all stuff John Lear would have known because he worked there. Even if he didn't take the bus and he took Janet Airlines from McCarran Airport, he most likely asked somebody there, "Oh, what's with the white buses?" And they probably told him because it's not a big deal to them. Or he probably had the option, "Hey, you live in Las Vegas. You have two options to get here to work. You can't drive in, we're not going to let you, but you can take Janet Airlines or you can take the white buses. Here's where you can pick up the white buses at." Because this is all going to be in his NDAs to shut up, right? So he's not going to talk about it. Oh, how perfect to get the information out. Get Bob Lazar to do it. We're just friends. Nobody can prove I gave you the information. This is why I'm almost completely convinced that John Lear is 100% behind this story. I mean, with the help of Bob Lazar, of course. I mean, he's a smart guy. I think they're both smart, but Bob Lazar is very intelligent.
Yeah.
This
Bob
is
Lazar's book smart. He's not some like his
Right.
social so where you lose me is what if it, like I doubt he had where I'm having trouble drawing the correlation is
Yeah.
is if he was a fixture out there due to his job and he couldn't divulge it to anybody, but he could get Bob Lazar to do it and tell Bob, and he convinced Bob Lazar that there were these other things out there that he had seen, and this is a story we're going to come up with, and Bob's hurting for money, and oh, don't worry, well, he takes care of Bob Lazar's financial struggles and whatever the case is, however he gets him to go along with it. So are you saying that he made up that he put forth the stories of what Bob has said he's seen out there as far as or what his job was out there, or they just concocted that together? Or
So the main thing I'm saying is that a lot of the details, the little details that have turned out over the years to be factual, someone like Bob Lazar shouldn't have known about unless he worked there, which was always the claim. He worked there, right? Which we know he didn't. My
someone
biggest
who would have had
point
to
is
have told him.
all those details, he has a perfect way of getting those. John Lear knew all those things, the white buses, going to Groom, all this stuff. If there was a dirt road that goes out to Papoose Lake, he would have seen it. That's my main thing. And then I think they perpetrated the story together. And I don't necessarily think 100% for money. If you look at it, John Lear, massive conspiracy theorist. Why not create my own story? Lazar is probably going to help me. We're good friends. Well, Lazar can help come up with a lot of the other stuff as to, okay, well, I know some stuff about along these lines having to do with, whatever crap
Jet
he claims he
propulsion
knows.
and yeah,
Whatever he claims to do with science. He's a physicist, right? Supposedly. He does know stuff about that, so he can help come up with the portion of, okay, what is it we're going to say I did at S4? Okay, I worked on propulsion. I can talk about this, and this semi-intelligently, I guess, blah, blah, blah. And then they concoct it. They have nothing but time. They both have jobs. So let's concoct it and do that. Now it's splattered with factual details that John Lear definitely knew about, that over time were proven to be true, with a bunch of bullshit that is most likely bullshit, like the main part of the story, UFOs, alien crafted S4 and all this. People have come out over the years. I remember seeing this a long time ago. Some people coming out on some interviews and they're like, "That's bullshit. There's no dirt roads. There's no roads at all that go from Area 51 to Papoose Lake and blah 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 blah." And I'm uh, like I literally looked this up a year prior to hearing that on Google Maps. You can go to the satellite view and zoom
Yeah.
in. You see clear, maintained dirt roads going from Area 51 south and over to Papoose Lake. You see one that goes down around the south end. You see one that comes to the south end, splits off towards Papoose, but stays on at an elevated. It stays a little elevated, not too high, but it goes up a little bit and goes around, and it leads to a very specific area, which I've always thought that if Lazar's story was true, that's where it would be, because its dirt road goes right to the perfect goddamn spot where this would have been at. And it's a little thing, you can easily see it on Papoose Lake. I'm not going to explain it now because it won't matter without showing you, but my biggest point, John Lear knew a lot of these factual details that are in that story. Papoose Lake, Area 51, white buses, Janet Airlines from
Yeah,
McCarran,
that
and
that's
Bob
why
Lazar would have known.
that's why I think he fed a lot of the information to Bob Lazar, and
Yeah.
I just wonder what Bob Lazar's incentive was to go along with it. If it's
Okay. So,
because his
which I was
incentive was
on.
always
Yeah.
money with, and that's why I thought, well, if I'm John, hey, don't worry about. Listen, I'll pay off these bills, or I'll take care of
Mhm.
this, that, and that would convince Bob Lazar, okay, well, now I got to do what this guy's, or now I got to,
Yeah.
now there's more incentive to go along with it rather than just to shut him out and say, no, I don't want to be anything
I
to do
think
with this.
I think John Lear is. I was beginning to say this. Thanks for bringing that back, because I went off. John Lear, incentive. He's highly into the topics. He's massive conspiracy theorist. Why not come up with my own story? Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar has some arrogance about him. You watch interview after interview after interview with him, and these are red flags I've always picked up. And for me, my opinion, of course, but there's plenty of times where he's been talking, and as he's talking normal, like I'm talking right now, he might get a little kind of smirk on his face, do that little thing in certain things he's talking about. And as good as that story is, as believable as this story is, that has a lasting power to stay around this long, there's still some red flags with Bob Lazar. I think he's somewhat arrogant, and yeah, I'm not going to completely say into himself, but I think doing something like this is a good way for him to put the story out and watch how many people believe this. I don't have a problem watching this thing go on, and then years and years go by and he's actually fucking sick of it. And I think that's what had to do with the little rift between him and John Lear. It's only opinion. I have no evidence for that other than what we've
That's
seen.
interesting.
But we know there was a little breakup or little split with them, and they I think they each talked about it a little bit, very minor though. And in my thinking, just because of the way things have added up, is that could have had to do with this story, and possibly Bob Lazar wanting to be done with the shit because he got a little too much fame is the wrong word, but we'll say fame, and it wasn't as positive as he'd hoped. And I think that caused a little rift because he wanted to probably come out and be like, hey, we're done, let's just get this off our chest now before it's too late. And Lear probably talked him out of that. I don't
That
know.
could,
um,
no, that could be,
I
that
don't know.
makes sense. I think if I've watched the video and John Lear's a little too excited about having Bob Lazar make a video showing the when they're out there
That's what
videotaping.
bullshit. Yeah, when
Yeah,
they saw the UFOs at night, that's
yeah,
bullshit. Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. And John Lear is a little too excited that Bob Lazar is going along with this, or that they're actually uh, taking this to task now and actually putting this out there
Look,
and actually.
Bob Lazar's not going to have the. God damn it! This isn't a Bob Lazar show, man. God damn it! Bob Lazar's not going to have the testing schedule. I'm sorry, he's not going to know that. They're not going to tell him. They keep the stuff too compartmentalized. We know that is a fact. He's not going to have the testing schedule. He only saw it allegedly twice.
And if we go back to just the basics, he's not going to have the clearance to be out there. In order to get that type of clearance, that's not going to be something that, well, you go to work at this at Los Alamos, and then the next thing you know, now they send you out there. I mean, that's a year and a half, a 2-year process of being cleared, and it's it's the same way when you apply for the FBI or the CIA. It's the same in-depth background where they go to your neighbors and your neighbors' neighbors and your teachers and your girlfriends that you had in the 5th grade. They basically interview, and they come, and that takes a long time, and then they assess your and Bob Lazar, he might know about physics, but that doesn't make him a physicist. No more so than I'm not a rocket scientist because I can shoot fireworks off in the air. And so he, just because he's, and to sprinkle in the education of, you remember, it's like I told you, whenever whenever somebody's undercover, they always give themselves out in case they're made or found out. And so when he claims to have gone to MIT and to Cal Poly, and then they question him on both of them, and he's at MIT, he claims that, well, I was sent there as a it was the classes were seminar classes, and I was sent there by the government to. So he never he always has an antidote for questioning why this or why that, and I just don't see practically how he could have gotten out there and been able to work on. I mean, the story he told about the person he replaced was a movie script, not a script. It was an actual the plot to a movie, a sci-fi movie that had come out prior to that, and that has been debunked. And like anything else, things get debunked over time and after a while. And I think that you're right, John Lear. Without John Lear, I don't know that this ever happens.
I don't think it would have happened. I think they did this concerted effort between the both of them. I don't think Bob Lazar was talked into doing it or manipulated. I think John Lear came up with the idea. My guess is the two of them probably sat around from time to time and talked about this type of shit. And they're, probably nothing different than me and my friends or you and your friends sitting around talking about it. And then one of them's like, hey, you want to do something funny? Blah, blah, blah. And they come up with this plan and talk about it more and get serious about it. Let's do it. I can definitely come up with this side of the story. You come up with the rest. Oh, you got facts. He's already told them. I mean, come on.
You get some recording equipment. We'll go up in the Sierras. We'll make some noises, and then we'll sell some CDs, and we'll get somebody that's a crypto linguist.
Hey, you didn't hear it here first, but it was profitable. I'm down.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if I were doing that, I would be doing anything and everything I could to try and make money from doing this. But so
the only thing I question about the whole thing is John Lear's access in the CIA with anything. I'm not saying he didn't. I know that it was limited. I don't think he was an agent spying overseas, and he might have just been have just been a pilot that was.
He was a taxi driver in a plane.
Yeah, and as a result, he either embellished his resume or because if he had any access and this had come out, it came out to, you can't go to a reporter and have and take what you claim to be documents and have them not come after you.
Yeah.
I don't think that he was flying secret CIA technology and testing it out at Area 51. I don't know what he was. You think he was?
I'm not 100% sure if it was if it's been verified or not. But here's why I say that: when you look him up and you look at his accolades for flying, he has so much just medals and honors for like he is
Yeah.
highly decorated as a pilot for hours, just everything you can think of. Like it was massive. I could totally see that at the time that he was working for the CIA, being a pilot, I mean, he was flying since he was a kid with his dad. He's a shoo-in to be a test pilot out there, possibly,
Right.
dependent on some other things, I'm sure. But I do believe that. Not to say you're
I
wrong,
would
but
no, no,
I
no.
do believe it.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm thinking that he was a test pilot. He was one of the top pilots in the country because that's who the test pilots are. They're the best of the best.
Yeah.
And so he was that, and then he was also, but I don't know if I don't know what he would be. I don't know. I think it's a stretch to say that he was testing different craft for the CIA. I think he was doing something for the CIA, and I wonder how much the two overlap. Because
Well,
there's no doubt he was a test pilot. There's no doubt he was a
yeah.
great pilot and a decorated pilot, and he had, and at some point, in order to go from that to where he ended up, he had to have broken somehow or another, or at least, you don't, you know, with those positions, you're talking about polygraphs, and you're talking about psychologicals that are annual, and so for them not to detect that, or for them not to, I would now. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I know we know he was a test pilot and a great pilot. We also know that he worked for the CIA in some capacity, and um, I don't know how much access that he had out there. I
Oh,
think
he
he had
didn't. No.
enough to know, to be able to feed Bob Lazar the stories of what is where, and hey, this
Yeah.
place is, if you look
That's
here,
it.
they've got this. I don't know why this brings me to this, but have you heard the story of the guy that broke into Area 50? He broke up, he and stayed there for like a
He
week
went
or 10
hiking.
days.
He hiked
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
He
he
was
hiked in
looking
and stayed
for
there.
the 49ers trail.
Yeah, okay, you
This
are aware of it.
this guy found quite a few of the markings that the 49ers left on their trip out here. And basically, they had to split up and all this stuff. And some people had to go back. So they put markings. They said, okay, we'll do it every so often. Here's kind of how we'll do it. Here's the markings we'll make. Well, it took them right through the Nellis Range, allegedly right there at the Papoose Mountain Range, where Groom Lake or Area 51 is, and Papoose Lake is. This guy, we're actually going to do a show on him at some point. I read a lot into this. It was an interesting story.
Yeah,
He went
he's
in,
passed away since, but
yeah, and I'm
yeah,
not sure. I want to say I recall he came in from the south, kind of like Vegas ish area, and went up, and he got to the Papoose Range, and he only needed to go where he believed the 49ers had gone through, which would have been right there near the south side of that mountain range. He didn't find what he was looking for. He did find some interesting stuff on his way, came across some installations. He needed water at night, all this
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah.
But that was interesting because he legit tried, and
He tried to
contacted
get
them.
access. Yeah,
He contacted multiple times. He's like, look, you can escort me. I don't give a shit. I just want to go find this thing. I already know where I'm going to look. And they're like, nah, screw you. Which is interesting because he's like, you can escort me. Well, they have security driving around out there. Like, it wouldn't be that difficult. Say, okay, meet us at this gate. We'll drive you where you want to go. You got the whole day. You cannot stay overnight. But if you want to do it one more day, you can do it the next day. You can get a room in Rachel, Nevada, come back the next morning. We'll drive you right where you want to go. You're an old guy. We'll have 2 security guys with you in the truck. That's it. And there you go. And that, of course, is going to feed into the whole thing, too, I'm sure, because, well, why wouldn't they let him do it if he's escorted? It's at Papoose Lake, not Groom Lake.
yeah. Because the minute they let him do it, then they realized that now there's
Yeah,
going to be a flood amount of requests come in for
probably.
they, somebody wants to check to see if their ancestors were buried in this spot, or my thinking is, have him explain where it is, send a security team out there. If in fact it's out there, and you let him know that's not going to be good enough for him, he's going to want to see it, of course, and then figure out a way. But he didn't want to have anything to do, so he said. Now, they didn't have the time, nor probably the resources at that point, nor the inclination to do a background on him to make sure he was who he says he was, and he wasn't going to be out there, because he did take a camera with him, and in their mind, this is exactly how, even if he is an American citizen who was born and raised here and bleeds red, white, and blue, doesn't mean that he's not going to take this, and we have no control over him because he's not a government employee.
Well,
so I can see some of the reasons why that's and plus that's a unique request, but it's also that was one thing I picked up on in what I watched on him, and then his recordings afterwards, the audio that I heard of him telling the story. I know he was struggling for water at some point. Yep. But I would just be interested I'm interested is when, in looking at a map, going back and looking at maps of this from, say, 1982 or say 1975, and seeing if the things that were labeled on there were labeled. I know I'm almost certain that Area 51 was common knowledge, at least to the people.
It was in the area.
In the area, as far as way back, even like in the 60s and 70s. I don't know when. I don't know. I just don't. I know that. I don't think that everything was divulged in. But you're right. That makes sense about John Lear. I just don't know that. I think that he had
that are true. He had them.
Yeah, I would be careful if I were speaking on it to claim, or I wouldn't give him the credit of having unrestricted access out there to where he could.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think he did. What I'm saying is, as a test pilot, and I'm using CIA planes as a reference because he worked for the CIA at the time, and he was, from time to time, it may have only been 2 or 3 times, he had gone to Area 51 as a test pilot. What I'm saying is, I don't think he had anything above and beyond on information that was given to him. All I'm saying is, if he's a test pilot out at Area 51, he's obviously taking off and landing from Groom Lake. Therefore, he's going to have some type of flight charts with him, maps, so he can visually verify where he's at when he's flying out there, in case any instruments go down and he can't use instruments to fly back.
Yeah.
He has the maps, and that's why I know he had to have known Papoose Lake was there. Maybe not the name, but he had to have seen it as he flew. So he knew there was another dry lake bed on the other side, I believe. And I would think he probably had the name Papoose Lake. It was probably on the maps, the flight charts for out there, so that if his navigational equipment did go down, he could still fly back. And if he was communicating with the control tower at Homey Field, which is Groom Lake, Area 51, he could say, I see Papoose Lake. It's to my west at my 3 o'clock. That's all I'm saying. This is basic info that he definitely, reasonably to believe he could have had.
Right. I think what I'm was under the impression was that he was a test pilot. And then, as when he worked for the CIA, and when he was out at Area 51 or in that area, I would want to know that he was a test pilot at Area 51 as opposed to being a test pilot.
Right.
That's what he was a test pilot at Lackland Air Force Base,
right?
Or a test pilot, and then
specifically at Groom Lake.
So
he was a test pilot. It doesn't sound like it was that often. It sounds like maybe here and there, which totally makes sense, because they wouldn't have a need for him to be a test pilot all the time. And he would only be a test pilot, most likely, for CIA craft. And I mentioned the SR-71 Blackbird because that was a CIA, that was originally built as
Right.
a CIA spy plane.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think he flew that, but what I'm saying is there's plenty of other types of planes the CIA uses that, they're going to want test flown first. Perfect place to do it. That's where they're doing it. That's where they're building it. Whatever the deal is, it makes total sense.
He could have been, as a test pilot, he could have been involved in the research and development, or the processes that go into it and building
Yep.
it. He could have been the subject matter expert in the classroom when they're coming up with the different concepts. Hey, this doesn't work, or this, we need this idea. I mean, at some point they come up with the idea to put a one up on a pedestal so that the shadow would catch the Sputnik when it was going over, and the Sputnik would not see that craft, but a different kind of craft,
Mm-hmm.
because they knew the time that it came over and was taking pictures
Yep.
of that area. So he could have had any type of involvement. I was under the impression that he was a test pilot at a different location, test flying, and I'd be interested to see what the research is on that. And so,
Yep.
I just, he's no longer here to push the agenda, and Bob Lazar's stuck with the story. And Bob Lazar's, he's arrogant in his way. I can sense, though, that he's also, and hey, if you're frustrated, if you think that the story's unraveling or people are getting, the best thing to do is to stop talking about it, which he's done for a long time. So maybe he thought that people were on to him, and he's just now giving interviews. And when he gets to something he doesn't like to talk about, he claims he's got a headache, or he's,
which he's not really doing that many interviews. A lot of this came about because of Jeremy Corbell. I think he was pushed into it, possibly by money, even though he claims no money, no money.
I saw the one interview with Joe Rogan, and I saw him he attended one thing, but he went with George Knapp, and it was in Mexico City. And so, listen,
he's done quite a few.
This is going to sound bad, but Latin America, Central America, you go all the way down to South America. It doesn't take a lot for them to believe, to include, you could show them a hoax and you could prepare the hoax in front of them and they would still believe it. And so maybe that's why he was willing to go to that. But you're right. I think with him, whether it's Bob or whether it's John Lear or Jeremy Corbell, we talked about this. Jeremy Corbell got put onto him from his tattoo artist. And so that's how he got involved in this whole thing. And he mentions that in an interview on how he got to the documentary. But they don't, the documentary, it doesn't divulge anything, so they came up with a hand machine. They don't, I mean, that's their big climax. And
that
zenith of the story.
That exact model or looking thing was in the movie.
Yeah, that doesn't get us from there to ETs and all these other ships. And you can go back to the practical. There was a doctor, a alleged doctor, who claimed that his job was strict.
Steve
It was
McGrath?
This guy was this guy has that look like he's up. It's got that menacing look. He claims that he was there to liaison with the J-Rod entity, and that guy, they kept it alive so it would teach them how to pilot the craft, which we've never had anybody. I mean, it's just none of this stuff ever comes to fruition. It's all stories. And then you find out somebody from childhood comes out and says, no, that wasn't it. Turns out this guy's gone through a bad divorce, and his ex-wife, came up with all the stuff that he's lying about. And so, but it doesn't take, a lot of this stuff, it doesn't take evidence to show that. I mean, some of it's so far-fetched that you don't even want to fool with. I mean, why even waste your time researching it? So,
something that did come to fruition, which gets us back to Richard Doty, is the disinformation campaign against Paul Bennewitz by Richard Doty and our government. Um, it's when you look into it, I mean, it's a sad story, unfortunately, but it shows you exactly what our government is willing to do, and not to turn it
Incapable of doing.
governmental or political, but they do these things, and this plays into now when you hear people like David Fravor and other pilots talking, no, they wouldn't test anything weird like that in our training area when they know we're training, and I call bullshit on that. They 100% would. Number one, they've done it in the past. Number two, if they have something that's like 50 years beyond and it would make people think aliens, yeah, they're not going to tell anybody they're testing it as few people as possible. And guess what? It's easier to test it out in your training area rather than bringing all the equipment over to the Nellis range and testing it out there. Test it in the real world environment, on the water, underwater, submarines, aircraft carriers,
Well,
battleships, all these things, and aircraft. And then guess what? They have access to all that sensor data and the recordings on what you saw. They're going to hear all your descriptions. Now they're going to have real world proof of, hey, if we do use this in another country in the next 20 years, what are they going to see? How are they going to describe what they saw? Are they going to be able to figure out it's us or human
yeah,
technology?
they're
Of
going to have
course they do it.
the empirical, the data that was tested in real world. And guess what?
Yeah.
David Faber saying that is exactly what you would expect. They don't, um, you wouldn't, you don't want them to know that you're testing this type of technology.
No.
Notice the technology didn't cause anybody to crash and burn. It didn't cause any type of damage. It didn't cause any outside of just raised eyebrows and then speculation and then people start putting together A and B, and then they jump all the way to Z instead of just what this could have been. We've never seen, and it's funny that we don't hear. Well, this could have been this, it could have been that. And usually when you're talking to somebody, you ask them, when they're sold and they're all in, the one thing that we always ask is that, is there a possibility, or can you tell me the reason why this wouldn't be a possibility of working? For example, somebody gives me a check for our alumni, and they leave it on the bar and don't give it to me. And then the next day I ask them, hey, and they said, well, I gave it to you last night. And no, you didn't. Yeah, I did. And they go through it, and I say, listen, you didn't because I don't have it. And then they swear that, no, I gave it. Okay, is it possible that you didn't give it to me? And when they say, no, it's not possible. Well, of course it's possible because it happened. And so
Right.
when the analogy is that when somebody cuts off and no, that it's not possible that it was something else. It has to be an alien craft of some type. It has to be a technology that was foreign, or it was, first of all, you're not going to know. And secondly, that's the reason to test it out there during those. Notice it wasn't, they weren't testing things that were causing injury or damage. Right. So,
and that's assuming they were testing something.
Yeah. And so with Bennewitz, I think this has become a good example of knowing when to, because they're accountable for this. They're the government.
Right.
They were the one that chose to go down this road. And, Richard Doty, I'm sure he didn't go rogue on this and just decide this. And nor did he come back and say, hey, I've got an idea. Let's do this. And all the generals and all the leaders say, you know what? That's a great idea, Rich. Go have at it. So that makes them accountable and responsible. And now they see what can happen. And so it's not just paying out a lawsuit to his family. It's now we need to be careful about doing this in the future as far as somebody that is this far is in this much belief. And I think that's why it came out with Linda Moulton Howell that, the similar stuff, showing her documents and then pulling them back and then her reporting on them and to discredit her, it works a lot. And there's so many times we'll never know if it worked because we won't know if it was used or not.
Right.
But like I said, these can't be the only times that this happened. It's just, I would say, at least with this, I mean, imagine if they had done something like this on a grander scale and it had caused mass hysteria and people were,
Hmm.
the CIA did that in France back in the, I don't know when it was, that town in France that they dosed everybody with LSD.
Right.
Um, and so they're not beyond doing things, and it doesn't even, you don't have to go to France, but
We've
they're
done
not
it
doing
here.
things on bigger scales. Yeah, we've done it
We've
here.
done
And
it here
so,
with our military personnel and civilians at the same time,
yeah.
and
And
not telling them what they were doing.
and and that's part of what, but the UFO community or the conspiracy theorists will, that they always fall back on, well, that's what they want you to believe, or that's what they want you to say, or
Yeah, and
if
that's an
you're
easy
not a,
cop. That's
yeah,
always an easy cop out, and sure, sometimes that's it's 100% correct. But when you talk about this type of stuff, it most likely isn't. Of course, I mean you can say that about anything and turn the argument around, and you cannot. You just can't argue with those,
yeah.
those types when they say
It's
things like that. There's
it's
no.
like the it's like the that's what she said. I mean, you can say that with anything. Hey, what time is it? That's what she said. Yeah, and then you make a little
That's
smile
what
and
she
giggle,
said.
and all of
Oh,
a
you
sudden,
just
I mean,
turned it into something different.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what
Well,
she said. You turned it into something different. That's what she said.
yeah. Well, let's in Doty with in Paul Bennewitz with I think one more thing
I
is going
wish
to
I knew
bring up.
more to add with
Yeah, yeah. I
Richard
mean,
Doty,
it.
and we
I
can do a follow up or something when if we.
yeah.
I just don't know enough about all his accolades or
Well,
lack
we
thereof.
yeah, we have the main stuff, but one of the bigger issues now, and this goes back to, I think do your own research and what can you trust, what can you not trust. You got to remember. So nowadays, and we don't have to go deep into this. I'm not going to be too knowledgeable, but Doty is now out. He's he's come out about this. Obviously, we know he came out a long time ago, but he's been doing interviews and things like that now, and he's telling stories and this and that's over there and knick knack paddywhacks and give 10 dogs a bone. And before, I am of the opinion that he can't be trusted. I facial expressions, mannerisms, his proven past. Um, it this unfortunately these types of programs play into other issues where Doty could be 100% legit right now. He could have 100% remorse for
We'll never know.
driving this guy
Yeah,
mad. And now he's out talking and allegedly spilling secrets, I think, and whistleblowing or whatever he's doing. But he's talking about some stuff. And the exact thing right now is, how could you even come close to trusting anything this
yeah.
guy says? He could tell you he peed in the dirt 3 hours ago. How could you believe him?
Yeah, unless you were there and witnessed it, there. I mean,
Yeah,
and that's
and
what
even
happens
then,
when you're an agent, a double agent, when you're telling lies to both sides, regardless of whether it's the betterment or whether it's whoever's in on it. People aren't going to trust you, and so for him, he
yep.
shouldn't be shocked that people don't believe him and that people don't trust him, and that it's just interesting to see. I don't even like. You told me more just now about him uh, being out telling things, and I knew he was out, but I didn't know he was.
I don't know
Um,
exactly what he's doing, but I know I've seen him out a little bit talking. A little bit meaning I haven't watched too much of it, but I know he's been talking about some stuff. I don't know the exact specifics as to what he's talking about, but what it or what it had to do with. But I do recall, from what I'd heard was he's saying things where it's going to take some trust to believe what he's saying now, and I
yeah,
just don't see how anybody can if you know the story and what he's done.
unless he
Of
claims something that actually comes and it comes to fruition and they prove it's
course,
true. Then in fact, I mean, you might, and even then, I mean, he could name off 10 things and they could all be true and all be proven, and it would still there's and rightfully so, people are still going to look at me with the side eye.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Unfortunately, you should.
yeah,
So,
right.
well, yeah, that's it. I guess for Richard Doty, we could definitely do a deeper dive later on into him. This is the main thing for his story tonight, though. I think we got a lot of the specifics. Is mainly what happened. I read Linda Moulton Howe, didn't need too much on her because it's mainly about Doty. But be skeptical if you're questioning something in your head. Question it. Don't just jump. Don't fall for it. If you think you need to question it, do it. Look into it, because
Right.
these people do it, and they do it today. So we'll wrap this one up. We may record another show. We may not. Gonna be up to Jared, but we'll wrap this one up for tonight.
I appreciate it as always.
Back.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy, and I come away from all these every time with a new thought, a new belief, a new way of looking at things. So it's beneficial for me as well. So I'm glad you had me on.
Sounds good. We will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check back with us often for new episodes. Feel free to drop a comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Obscured Reality.